Rock and roll.
Okay, I'm going to kill the mics and we're going to roll here.
Let's roll.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of Salem Communications, staff, management, or advertisers. Activist Radio is on the air. You've tuned into the Mark Harrington Show, sponsored by Created Equal. Mark is training a new generation of leaders to take on the culture of death and win.
All right! If you don't like abortion, don't have one.
The only thing that can be said to be objective truth is that there is no objective truth.
It does come out in one piece. It comes out in one piece.
I would argue that we certainly are not all created equal.
And now, here's Mark.
Yeah, baby. All right. Yeah, we love it, Van Halen. I know that's kind of antithetical to my audience, but I regress to the pre-Christian era of Mark Harrington, loving Van Halen there. The Bible says in Psalm 139 that you formed me in my mother's womb. And I'll give thanks to thee, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are thy works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame is not hidden from thee, when I was made in secret, and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. That's what the scripture says. When each one of us was formed in our mother's womb, God recognized us. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. And we're going to be talking about that. In the next 3 to 4 programs on the Mark Harrington Show, we're going to be talking about apologetics, pro-life apologetics. And when I talk about apologetics, I'm not talking about apologizing. That's what husbands do. So I hope you understand what apologetics is. It's just making a defense for the faith, making a defense for the hope that was within us, and doing it with gentleness and respect. And that's what we do at Created Equal. That is who we are. We are a training program. We believe that students need to be taught how to defend the pro-life position as part of their overall Christian apologetics. And then they need to be taken out into the public square to be able to actually practice what they've been taught. So we're very hands-on. We're very boots on the ground. We're, putting people in the field, but we believe they need to be equipped. And so we're going to spend the next 3 to 4 programs equipping you to be apologists for the pro-life position, to defend the fact that we're made in the image of God. So stick with us for the next 3 Saturdays. I think you're going to find the time very productive. If you're not, obviously most folks don't have an understanding like myself and my guests do here. We don't expect that everybody's going to know as much as we know. We do this 24/7. This is what we do. This is our mission. But there are some things that you can learn from the next 3 to 4 programs that will help you defend the preborn with your colleagues, friends, anybody, your workers, people you work with, family, other Christians, and that's what we're hoping to provide you. And then maybe there'll be some of you in the audience that might want to actually go to the next step, and that is to come out and stand with us as we defend the preborn in the public square. So for the next 3 programs, my guest is going to be my good friend and colleague, training director for Created Equal, Seth Drayer. Seth, thanks for being on the Mark Harrington Show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Mark. Thank you.
So this is really easy for us, folks. Because we're just going to have a conversation. This is what we do. But we're going to kind of try to knock out all the issues, if you will, in 3 programs. We're not going to be able to cover it all, but we're going to kind of cover the biggest stuff, the stuff that you hear about the most, the arguments against the pro-life position. And so let's just start at the beginning, right? And the biggest question that I think people have, at least it used to be, and maybe not so much today, but is when does life begin? And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the devil's advocate.
It's a great role.
I play that fairly well. Actually, I actually in some of my speaking, I play Dr. Cornelius Choice, where I don a wig of what do you call them?
I don't even know what you'd call
dreads.
that. Yeah, that's right.
I wear a dreads wig, and I have this shirt on with a peace sign and it says "Stop War," and I act like I'm an abortion advocate. So I can play this pretty well. In fact, I can probably do it better than most abortion advocates, to be honest with you. So I'm going to play the abortion advocate here today, and I'm not going to be taking it easy on Seth. He's used to this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to basically ask him the questions that we would hear on a college campus or elsewhere, and we're going to go through them. The first is this. We don't know when life begins, therefore abortion should be legal.
Well, here's the problem, Dr. Choice. To say that we don't really know when life begins actually flies in the face of modern science. We've come a long ways in embryology, fields like that, embryology being the study of embryos, the beginning of human life. If you pick up an embryology textbook on any fine campus, like here in Columbus, Ohio State, you'll see clearly laid out when human life begins. And actually, I have a list of several of them in front of me, but just to pick one, Drs. Keith Moore and T.V.N. Prasad in their book, Clinically Oriented Embryology, The Developing Human, they write this. So this is what they're saying from their evidence. Human development begins at fertilization when a male gamete or sperm unites with a female gamete or oocyte to form a single cell, a zygote. This highly specialized totipotent cell marked the beginning of each of us as a unique individual. And that's kind of maybe some technical knowledge, but what we see they're writing is that when you have a sperm from a man and an ovum from a woman unite, that creates something new, the one-celled zygote that's biologically alive. It has human DNA, you have metabolism, cellular growth. All of the criteria for biological life are present in that tiny one-celled zygote. So really we have to ask, we know it's living, but what kind of a living thing is it? Well, I conclude it has to be a living human being because it's of the same species as its parents. So what do you think about that?
Well, you can find any source to back up what you believe. You're just pulling these out of thin air. These guys obviously, I could probably find folks that don't believe that life begins at conception. I think the point is this, as a professor, I'm a professor, Dr. Cornelius Choice,
Sure.
at Abortion U. I think that it really doesn't matter. It should be left up to the mother to decide anyway whether she continues the pregnancy or not.
Oh, so that's a different question.
So let me grant you the premise.
Sure.
That the preborn are humans, that they're human, but I still believe a woman has the right to her own body and to choice.
See, now we see here really what doesn't matter. It matters whether or not the preborn are human, but I think where you and I divide is not are they human, but are all humans created equal? I believe all humans, regardless of sex or color or age, whether you are young in the womb or older and outside the womb, I believe all humans are created equal, and that is why I don't just trust mothers to decide. Would you trust mothers to decide whether or not to kill their toddlers?
Well, no, they're born. But so that makes you a speciesist then. You believe that humans are different than animals. And obviously, in my opinion, the reason you believe that is because of that old-fashioned book that you read, the Bible.
So I'll freely admit I believe all humans are made in the image of God, and I believe we get our dignity from that. However, I believe that even many people who, like you would call me a speciesist, are speciesists themselves. Peter Singer, who is the great champion calling all Christians speciesist, he's
one of my friends.
Is he one of your friends?
Yeah, he's written some good books on animal rights. But
He has.
Go ahead.
But he says, so what matters is not what species do you belong to, but whether or not you have certain qualities, self-awareness, rationality, things that make you a person. We have to ask ourselves, as Scott Klusendorf has pointed out, what quality or what species do those qualities favor? Most humans have rationality. Most humans have self-awareness. But why did Peter Singer choose human qualities to make you a person and not having thick skin like alligators? Clearly, he himself is speciesist, choosing qualities that favor his species. So really the question is this. Do we believe that all humans are valuable or not? And if you're right, I'll grant you your premise. Let's say all species are equal, humans, pigs, cats, dogs. All that means is that we should kill neither cats nor fetus human beings. It does not mean that it's okay to kill human fetuses and not okay to kill pigs or cats. If you're right that all life is sacred and no life should be killed, you ought to be also opposed to abortion.
Okay, well, listen, my good friend David Boonin and other very strong intellectuals in this department, as well as myself, because
Sure,
I am a
course.
professor.
I understand.
Dr. Choice, that is. Believe that, as I do, that it's about sentience. It's about self-awareness, that is the point to which this life in the womb, and I will grant to you that it is human, that's when we are able to ascribe to it the right to life and defense it, be able to give it legal protections, because then it's one of us. In fact, David Boonin says it's the cortical brain function. It's the actual brain function, in his opinion, that is the marker at which we ascribe rights of personhood. So I kind of follow that thinking.
Okay, well, at least we understand how we're changing the debate here, and that I think is important for, listeners of the Mark Harrington Show, maybe not for your Dr. Choice students, but important for them to understand that we're not talking anymore about when does human life begin. We're saying when are humans valuable.
Right.
So you and I both agree human life begins at fertilization. You just say...
I'll grant that.
You grant that, but
I would have to be an idiot to not agree with the facts that you've presented. Very few people disagree with that at this point.
Okay, well, so then at least... So do you understand here, before I even talk about, or before we discuss organized cortical brain activity, you are saying that some humans don't count as one of us. How is that not prejudice?
That's a good question. I just don't believe that you could ascribe rights to personhood for some blob of tissue, or just the fact that these are, they don't feel pain, they're smaller than we are, they're less developed. It's the mother's inside the mother's womb. They certainly are not a person in the sense that we understand it as born individuals.
Fair point. But that same exact statement could have been made years ago in saying, the slave is a human being, but is not a person in the same sense that we white people are. Today, we've just moved to a new prejudice. It's no longer sexism or racism as a legal structure anyway. Now it's ageism. If you're under 9 months gestation, maybe human, but you just don't count. But I guess what I should ask you is, if you believe that sentience, feeling through your senses, is what makes you a person, would you agree that once the fetus is sentient, can feel things, it'd be wrong to abort him?
Yeah, I do.
So you're opposed to late third trimester abortions?
Pretty much. I'm very curious about this, and we have about a minute before the break, if you would be able to throw this in. This acronym, SLED, that came from a guy named Michael Schwartz and has been used by others. Explain that, because I think that is helpful, despite the fact I don't agree with you on it, as to how you can organize your arguments against abortion.
Sure. Okay. Well, the point is, many people will argue, like you have, that they are human beings but not yet persons because they're different in some way. But there are only 4 differences between every preborn human and every born human. Those differences are the acronym SLED: size, level of development, environment, and dependency. But those 4 differences are irrelevant to human value, because I'm shorter than you are, Dr. Choice, but yet we're equal in our personhood. I'm less developed than you because you have a doctorate degree and I only have a Bachelor of Arts. And so we're still equal, though. In environments, you'll go home to your house, I'll go home to my house, different environments, yet we're both still human. And dependency, maybe you're more independent than I am. I don't know. It depends.
Well, because I have a doctorate, I might be able to provide a little better for my family.
Exactly. But those 4 differences.
You anti-choice, activists that probably living from hand to mouth every day.
Well, so size, level, development, environment, dependency are irrelevant to human value, and therefore those differences between born and preborn should not matter.
Well, that's a good argument. We'll pick that up on the other side. You're listening to the Mark Harrington Show. Dr. Cornelius Choice sitting in for Mark today. We'll be right back. To check us out, go to createdequal.net.
What do other pro-life leaders think of Mark Harrington and Created Equal? Listen to Scott Klusendorf of Life Training Institute.
Created Equal is about changing this culture, and that's what we have to do if we are going to win this fight. And Mark and Seth and the others on the team of Created Equal are doing just that. And I am happy to endorse their work. Glad to call them fellow companions in this fight for the life of the unborn. And I certainly hope you will support and work with them as they work on reforming this culture so that it has an appreciation for human life.
Mark Harrington is a missionary and free speech advocate, and Mark has been on the front line of the debate over abortion for over 20 years. Mark needs your prayers and financial support. Please support Mark and Created Equal by going to createdequal.net or send a check to Created Equal, Post Office Box 360502, Columbus, Ohio 43230. Your gifts are tax deductible.
All right, you're listening to the Mark Harrington Show. Dr. Cornelius Choice sitting in for Mark today, and I have a BA, an STD. That's a a degree in sacred theology. I have a doctorate degree. In other words, I'm kind of smart, and I've come to the conclusion that abortion should be legal up until the point to which the preborn entity can reason for itself or is self-aware. These are the views of many other folks, including very smart people like Peter Singer, Dr. Singer from Princeton University, and others. So, I didn't arrive at this overnight, and I have as my guest today Seth Drayer, who's the training director for the anti-choice group, Created Equal. So, Seth, let's go on to the hard questions I think our listeners would like to hear. And that is the first one that comes to mind, which is commonly brought up, and that is this, the issue of rape. Mm-hmm. And my question to you is this: how can you be so cold-hearted that you would force a woman to bear the child, raise this child as a result of a violent act of rape? I mean, you cannot be that mean-spirited, can you?
I think you're asking perhaps the wrong question. Okay. The question we should ask is, how should the violence of rape, how would that justify the violence of dismembering another human being? Rape is tragic. I don't know about you, Dr. Choice, but I've actually met real women who have been raped, and I know it's undue agony they go through. But the question is, once that has happened, who is guilty of that crime? The man who did it. I mean, I think you and I could both agree, right, that man, we should take the full extent of the law against him.
Nobody's going to agree that rape is a good thing. I'm against that.
Okay, we agree upon that. But here's the question. So what do we do with this innocent bystander created by the father? Are children guilty of their father's crimes?
But you're going to make a woman for 9 months be reminded of this the entire time?
I think maybe we're being nearsighted if we think that the 9 months is the hard time. The hard time comes after birth, when that baby's born and she looks at that child's face, and then she remembers the agony of the rape when she sees his face, thinks of the father, the rapist. But here's a question for you. After birth, when she looks at that baby's face and is traumatized, would you let her kill that born baby?
Of course not.
But why not?
Well, because it's human and we believe they're persons at that point. I've already made that clear.
But see, what's the difference then between born and it's the same child, just a little younger? Does age really determine our value?
It's a good point. Let's move on. How about life of the mother? Here's one that we hear often, and I'm of the opinion that abortion should be allowed in every case, for that matter, pretty much, up until the time to which we can ascribe rights of personhood at sentience. But we hear this, the life of the mother, that abortion should be permitted. And this is often your side, but it's clearly on my side of this issue, and to spare the life of the mother. What do you think about that?
I certainly think that we should always do the greatest moral good possible, and that is to save as many lives as possible. If the room that I'm in is on fire, I'm going to run out, but that'd be saving myself. A moral good would be saving someone else. The question we always have to ask is, who is it possible to save? If I'm in a room on fire, I'm not very tall, I might not be able to save the largest man, but I can save someone smaller than me. That's just a practical question I have to ask: who can I save? So when the mother's life's in danger, I agree we should save someone. The question is, who can we save? Prior to viability, when you can remove the baby from the mother's uterus and put her in an incubator and she can continue living between 20 to 24 weeks, prior to that point, you cannot save the baby. It is impossible. You could try to take the baby out of, let's say, for example, the mother has an ectopic pregnancy wherein the baby implants in the fallopian tube, not in the uterus. You could take the baby out of that harmful environment, but you can't retransplant her into the mother's uterus. You cannot save her life, but you can save the mother. So I argue, do the greatest moral good possible, save one person, and that is saving the mother. Now, after viability, I mean, you can try to save both of them. You go to the hospital, do an emergency C-section, take the baby out as fast as possible.
But isn't that,
and save the mother.
let's get down to the brass tacks
Sure.
here. Isn't that abortion? I mean, really, aren't you just justifying abortion to save the life of the mother?
No, because elective abortion by definition is the intent to kill. When you save the mother's life, your intent is not to kill. Your intent is to save one life. I mean, moral actions are not just defined by what they look like, but your intent. If I steal or borrow your pen, they may look the same to an outsider, but my intent is going to make the difference. If I'm stealing it, that's wrong. Borrowing is not a moral crime. So it's true that in both the baby dies, but your intent in elective abortion is to go in, dismember, decapitate, and disembowel. When you save the mother's life, that's not your intent. And you can do, for example, your option of saving might be a salpingectomy, by which you remove
What's that?
A salpingectomy.
No, there's a word for you.
That's a
Okay.
word, right?
I don't want you to spell that one, but explain that one for the listeners.
Again, like let's say a mother has an ectopic pregnancy. The baby is not in the uterus, but in the fallopian tube. You can remove the part of the fallopian tube housing the baby. That's called a salpingectomy. And when you take the baby out of that harmful environment, the mother can continue living. The baby, unfortunately, dies, but it's not the same as an abortion by which you dismember, decapitate, and disembowel a child.
So we understand this to be, from your side, called, well, actually, the principle is called the law of double effect.
That's correct.
I understand that, although I'm not completely following along with you. Yes. All right, so on to the next question. Again, you're listening to the Mark Harrington Show. Dr. Cornelius Choice sitting in for Mark today, an abortion advocate. And like I say, I'm a pretty smart guy. I've got a doctorate, and I am a professor at Abortion University here down the road, and teach this to my students. Some would say indoctrinating them, but I don't really see it that way. Let's move on to this whole question of legislating morality. Here's the way I look at it as a open-minded liberal, which I am.
Of course.
How can you, this Christian fascist, I think, or who's got this narrow-minded interpretation of the Bible, enforce your views on the majority of Americans? This anti-choice, you're going to force women to be pregnant. How can you do that? Now, I know that's a loaded question,
Sure.
the way I put that
No,
out there,
okay.
but that's the way I see it.
I'm not fearful of it because it's what we do every single day in America. It is American to legislate morality. We tell men, you cannot rape women, or you should not rape women, and we punish them if they do so. We tell parents, you may not kill your toddlers, and that is just, we all legislate morality when human beings are being harmed. So this would be, it's really odd in this one case where you're killing humans, somehow we don't legislate that. That does not make sense to me.
Well, your Savior even said, judge not, lest we be judged. He set the standard here, and you guys should just stay, out of this. This is between a woman, her doctor, and her God, not some legislators down in Washington or Columbus, who, by the way, are usually white men, to force people to believe these things. Keep your laws off the bodies of women. Keep your rosaries off their ovaries. So you guys just don't get it.
Well, see, first I have to just clarify what my Savior actually did say.
Okay.
People often take him out of context with his.
We love that
comments about
verse, by the way.
I know you do.
We use that one quite often, and very effectively, I'd say.
But when you read Christ's words about judging in greater context, where he talks about first removing the plank from your own eye before you take the speck out of your brother's eye, clearly he's saying still take the speck out, judge your brother, but first judge yourself. So judge rightly, don't judge hypocritically. So I'm very willing to say that there are either inconsistencies in my life, that I am not a perfect person. I'm willing to say that. But I still, when I see a man raping a woman, I'll judge him as wrong. Will you?
Yes.
So we both agree you judge when someone is harming another human, you ought to judge that as wrong.
We're talking about a woman's body here and her rights to reproductive freedom.
Well, but see, you're assuming...
I know, we're back into this whole question whether...
You're assuming the preborn is part of her body, but if the mother's fetus is part of her body, you're saying a mother has 4 eyes, 4 arms, 4 legs, and if she has a boy, male genitalia is part of her body.
Which we're back to the whole question of what the unborn are.
Right,
and
we are.
That's really at the heart of the question anyway, isn't it?
It is.
So, okay. All right, we've got about a minute left in this segment. Let me ask you this. Well, maybe we shouldn't do this right now because I think it's going to be too much to
Should we
cover.
just part as friends?
No, it's been good having you. Seth Drayer, my guest here. He is the training director for Created Equal, the anti-choice group led up by Mark Harrington. My name is Dr. Cornelius Choice, a professor at Abortion University down the street here. I indoctrinate young people. I mean, I teach them. I educate them in how it is to be a free speech advocate, a pro-choice advocate in the public square. Come back next week, folks. We're going to be doing more of this with my good friend Seth Drayer and Dr. Cornelius Choice. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to The Mark Harrington Show. God bless you. God bless America. And remember America. To bless God.